For most of my life, I believed peace sounded like silence. Then Maya taught me that some of the happiest mornings begin with someone making far too much noise in your kitchen. On one particular Tuesday, I woke to the unmistakable clatter of a cabinet door, followed by Maya muttering something unkind about my organizational system. I stayed in bed for several seconds, smiling before I remembered that smiling before coffee was against several principles I had spent 56 years establishing. When I reached the kitchen, Maya was barefoot on the hardwood floor, wearing the blue sweater she had started leaving in my closet and holding her familiar white mug. Music played softly from her phone beside the toaster. "Your coffee filters are in the wrong place," she announced. "They have been in that drawer for 9 years. "Exactly. That is 9 years of poor decision-making." I walked past her, moved the filters precisely 3 inches back to where they belonged and kissed her cheek. Maya looked at me with exaggerated concern. "You kissed me before correcting me. Do not get used to it." Too late. There had been a time when seeing another person's sweater hanging beside my clothes would have felt like evidence of an invasion. Now I notice when it was missing. That was the strange thing about loving Maya. The grand moments mattered certainly, but they were not the ones that changed me most. It was Tuesday mornings. Coffee made exactly the way she liked it. Her phone charger beside my couch. The book she had been reading face down on my coffee table despite my repeated explanations about what that did to a spine. The question I had not known to ask when we first became something more than neighbors was not whether I could make room for Maya. It was how quickly that room would begin to feel as though it had always belonged to her. Maya reached for my coffee, took a sip, and immediately made a face. "How do you drink this?" "Like an adult. It tastes like a disciplinary meeting." "Give it back." She laughed and moved the mug beyond my reach. Months earlier I might have been irritated. Instead, I watched her laughing in my kitchen and experienced that quiet internal surrender I was becoming familiar with. Then the song changed. I recognized it before Maya did. Worse, I hummed the opening melody while retrieving eggs from the refrigerator. Maya froze. "Claire." I kept my attention on the eggs. "What?" "You know this song." "I have ears." "You know this song." Apparently repetition can overcome even mediocre composition. She stared at me delighted. I should have known that expression meant trouble. Maya crossed to her phone and raised the volume. "Absolutely not. You started humming." "That was involuntary. This is the greatest morning of my life." I lowered the volume. Maya raised it again. I lowered it. She raised it. Finally I left it there. Maya smiled as if she had won something significant. Perhaps she had. I poured her coffee exactly the way she liked it and slid the mug toward her. She accepted it without looking because she already knew I would get it right. At the time I thought that was what happiness looked like. Knowing where someone kept her sweater, how much cream she wanted, which songs made her dance badly while making breakfast. I did not yet understand that ordinary things become precious for one dangerous reason. You begin believing they will still be there tomorrow. By then, the distance between our apartments had become almost ridiculous. 2 doors, maybe 12 feet of hallway, and yet we still maintained the fiction that Maya lived there and I lived here. Her blue sweater disagreed. So did the phone charger beside my couch, the paperback on my nightstand, and the ridiculous hot sauce occupying valuable refrigerator space. My belongings had migrated too. A bottle of wine I liked had taken permanent residence in Maya's kitchen, along with reading glasses I insisted I had not deliberately left there. On Friday evenings we usually cooked together. I cooked. Maya interpreted instructions creatively. "That is not a tablespoon," I told her one evening as she poured olive oil into a skillet. "It is approximately a tablespoon. That sentence is why civilizations collapse." She laughed, bumped her shoulder lightly against mine, and reached for the garlic. I moved it before she could add twice what the recipe required. "Control issues," she said. "Standards. Same thing with better tailoring." I looked at her, trying not to smile. She knew she had one when I failed. Later, Maya worked on her laptop at my dining table while I read on the sofa. Music played quietly between us. We went nearly 40 minutes without speaking. Once silence had been something I protected. With Maya, silence had changed shape. It was no longer the absence of another person. It was the luxury of not needing to entertain one. When she finally closed her laptop, She looked toward me. You know what is disturbing? The number of things that could follow that sentence concerns me. You did not ask me to turn the music down. I lowered my book. It is hardly loud. Maya reached for her phone and increased the volume. Do not abuse progress. She grinned. The following week, I caught myself playing the same song while driving alone. I turned it down at a stoplight, although nobody was there to accuse me of anything. That evening I told Maya. She placed a hand dramatically over her heart. I knew there was hope for you. I said I listened to one song. Do not make this a rehabilitation narrative. But our worlds were changing each other in quieter ways. Maya began keeping actual coasters on her coffee table because I hated rings on wood. I learned that an unplanned Saturday did not constitute a moral failure. She started reading one of the novels I loved. I started using the phrase playlist algorithm correctly, which Maya claimed was evidence of cultural evolution. We did not become alike. That was never the point. We became fluent in each other. I knew from the way Maya dropped her bag whether her day had been difficult. She knew from how carefully I folded the newspaper whether I needed conversation or 10 minutes of quiet. And somewhere inside those ordinary weeks, without discussion or permission, the question stopped being whose apartment we would spend the evening in. It became which door happened to be closer. That was why, one Sunday night, when Maya sat across from me with her wine untouched and her phone face down beside her, I noticed immediately that something was wrong. What happened? I asked. Maya looked at me then away. Nothing. I knew her well enough by then to understand that nothing was rarely nothing. I waited. Maya had taught me that silence could be comfortable, but she had also taught me that there were different kinds of silence. This one had edges. She picked up her wine, turned the glass once between her fingers, then set it down without drinking. I got an email on Thursday, she said. That sounds criminally ordinary. A small smile appeared, but it vanished quickly. It is about work. I closed my book and placed it beside me. Maya worked hard, though she had a talent for making ambition look effortless. I had seen the late nights, the conference calls taken from the hallway so she would not interrupt my reading, the presentation she revised 3 times while claiming she was only changing one sentence. Good news? I asked. Possibly. That word changed the room. Possibly is not usually how people describe good news. Maya looked at me then. There is a project I applied for before we became this. She gestured lightly between us. Before you corrupted my respectable lifestyle? Claire, you alphabetized spices. Exactly. Respectable. This time she laughed, but her eyes remained serious. I did not think I would get it. But you did. They offered it to me. I felt genuine pride first. That mattered to me later, because fear had not arrived yet. I reached across the table and touched her hand. Maya, that is wonderful. Her fingers turned beneath mine and held on. It is a major assignment. The kind that could change what I get to do afterward. Then why do you look as though someone handed you a tax audit? Maya inhaled slowly. Because it is not here. My hand became still. Somewhere behind us, the refrigerator clicked off, and the apartment seemed suddenly too quiet. Where? I asked. She named the city. Far enough that this was not a longer commute or an inconvenient weekend schedule. Far enough that maps would matter. How long? I asked. Maya hesitated. That hesitation frightened me more than the answer. The initial commitment is 18 months. 18 months. At 32, perhaps 18 months sounded like a chapter. At 56, I had learned that time did not become less valuable simply because you had accumulated more of it. It became heavier. Still, I did what I had always done when emotion threatened to become larger than the room. I reached for facts. When would you start? In about 7 weeks. Would you have housing there? Yes. Travel back. Some. I do not know how often yet. Remote weeks. Possibly. And flights are what, 3 hours? Maya studied me. Claire. What? You are making a spreadsheet in your head. I am asking reasonable questions. You are. She squeezed my hand gently. They are just not the question. I knew what she meant, and I disliked her for being right with such efficiency. My eyes moved past her toward the kitchen. Her blue sweater hung over the back of a chair. Her coffee mug sat beside the sink. A pair of her shoes rested by my door, slightly crooked because apparently symmetry remained beyond her moral development. Nothing had changed. Not yet. And suddenly I could see every one of those things without her. Maya watched my face soften. "I have not said yes," she said quietly. That should have relieved me. Instead, another question rose between us, one neither of us seemed ready to touch. What if she wanted to? For the next 2 days, I behaved as though sufficient information could make 18 months smaller. I checked flight schedules over breakfast. I calculated time differences while brushing my teeth. I even looked up the average number of direct flights each week, which was the sort of behavior that should have qualified as an intervention. Maya noticed, of course. She noticed everything I preferred to believe I concealed. On Tuesday evening, she found me at my dining table with my laptop open and a legal pad beside it. "Please tell me you are not researching airport parking." "I am not researching airport parking, Claire. I finished researching airport parking 20 minutes ago." Maya stared at me, then laughed despite herself. For half a second, everything felt normal. Then she sat opposite me, and normal disappeared again. "You do not have to solve this tonight," she said. "I am not solving anything. I am gathering information. That is how you solve things." I closed the laptop. It is an 18-month assignment. Information seems appropriate. So do feelings. I leaned back. Those are considerably less reliable. Her expression softened. "I know. That kindness made it harder. If Maya had been careless about leaving, perhaps I could have been angry. If she had treated the opportunity as obviously more important than us, perhaps I could have defended myself against it. Instead, she looked frightened too. "Do you want it?" I finally asked. Maya glanced down at her hands. "Yes." One word quietly spoken, and something inside me dropped. She continued before I could respond. "I want the work. I want what it could lead to. I wanted it before I knew you." Then she looked directly at me. "And I do not want to leave you." There it was, the problem in its most inconvenient form. Two truths occupying the same chair. "Those things are allowed to exist together," I said. "Are they?" "They will have to." My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Maya reached across the table, but this time I stood before she could touch me. I carried our untouched glasses to the kitchen because apparently stemware required immediate attention during emotional crises. At the sink, I saw her mug beside mine. I imagined one mug instead of two. One toothbrush. One coat by the door. No music beginning unexpectedly through the wall. No footsteps in the hallway that I could identify before the knock came. The future arrived through ordinary objects, and I hated it for that. Maya came behind me but stopped several feet away. She knew when not to close distance. "You can tell me this scares you," she said. I kept my eyes on the sink. "I am 56 years old. I have survived periods of geographic inconvenience." That was not what I said. I almost smiled. Almost. 18 months is a long time. "I know. Your life could change. So could yours." I turned then. "That is precisely the problem." Maya studied me for a moment. "No, Claire. I think the problem is that you are already imagining the ending before we have even decided what happens next." The sentence landed because it was true. Months earlier, I had nearly lost Maya by trying to answer every question before allowing myself to love her. Now I was doing something dangerously similar. Only this time the question was not whether I could let her into my life. It was whether I could love her without demanding that she remain within 12 feet of my door. For 3 days, neither of us tried to force the decision into something cleaner than it was. Maya went to work. I went to work. We ate dinner together twice, slept in separate apartments once because she had an early meeting, and discovered that ordinary life could continue while an enormous question sat quietly in the middle of it. On Thursday night, Maya came over carrying takeout and found me reorganizing a drawer that had not required reorganization since 2019. "That bad?" she asked. The batteries were mixed with the picture hooks. "A national emergency." I gave her a look, but she did not smile for long. We ate at the kitchen counter. Halfway through dinner, Maya put down her fork. "They need an answer Monday." I nodded. I had known the deadline. Naturally, I had written it down. "And?" she asked. "And what?" You have told me about flight schedules, housing costs, time zones, vacation days, and an airline credit card I am absolutely not applying for. The points are excellent. Claire. I looked at her. Maya held my gaze without accusation. Do you want me to stay? There are questions that become difficult because we do not know the answer. That one was difficult because I did. Every careful sentence I had prepared vanished. Yes. Maya inhaled softly. I forced myself not to rescue the word with qualifications. Yes, I repeated. I want you to stay. I want your shoes crooked by my door. I want you using too much garlic. I want to hear you looking for your phone while you are holding it. I want to complain about your music when we both know I like half of it now. Maya looked down, blinking once before meeting my eyes again. Then asked me. My chest tightened. For one dangerous second I wanted to. I could imagine the relief of hearing her say she would decline. The calendar would remain intact. Her mug would stay beside mine. Tomorrow would resemble today. That was the kind of safety I had spent most of my life constructing. Then I remembered the woman sitting across from me had possessed dreams before she ever knocked on my door. Loving me had not erased them. No, I said. Maya went very still. No. I want you to stay. But I will not ask you to give this up so I can be less afraid. Her eyes filled, though her voice remained steady. You are allowed to matter in my decision. I know. I reached for her hand. And you are allowed to want something that takes you away from me for a while. 18 months is more than a while. I am aware. I researched it extensively. That earned the smallest laugh. I held her hand tighter. I hate this, Maya. So do I. Good. I would have found enthusiasm insulting. She smiled through the sadness. Then her expression changed. I want to go, she whispered. Hearing it hurt. But for the first time, hurt did not make me reach for a door to close. Then I think you should go. Maya moved around the counter and wrapped her arms around me. I held her there, my cheek against her hair. Understanding that trust was not the absence of fear. It was deciding fear did not get the final vote. After a long moment, Maya said quietly, I do not want this to mean I am leaving us. I pulled back enough to look at her. Then do not leave us. And somewhere inside that simple answer, the decision finally became ours. Once the decision had a shape, time became strangely physical. 7 weeks had sounded generous when Maya first mentioned them. After she accepted the assignment, they began disappearing like coins from an open hand. A suitcase appeared in her bedroom. Then another. At first they remained empty, which allowed me to pretend they were merely badly placed furniture. Maya ruined that illusion on Saturday morning by folding sweaters into one of them. You are doing that incorrectly, I said from the doorway. She looked up. I am putting clothes in a suitcase. You are creating wrinkles with confidence. I knew dating you would eventually involve a packing seminar. I crossed the room, removed 3 sweaters, and folded them properly. Maya watched me with exaggerated reverence. What would I do without you? The question was playful. My hand stopped anyway. Maya saw it immediately. Claire. Do not. I was joking. I know. I finished folding the sweater and placed it inside. That is the problem. I used to know exactly what my days looked like without you. Maya sat on the edge of the bed. And now? I glanced around her room. A photograph of us from a weekend farmer's market stood on the dresser. My cardigan hung over her desk chair. One of my books rested face down beside her lamp, an offense I had apparently learned to tolerate in the name of love. Now I am going to have to relearn some things. Maya reached for my hand. Temporarily. Yes. I sat beside her. Temporarily. Over the following weeks, ordinary things acquired the weight of ceremonies without our permission. We bought groceries and wondered whether Maya would finish the mustard before leaving. We argued about which shoes she actually needed. She canceled a subscription. I wrote down her itinerary, then pretended I had not memorized it. We discussed video calls, visits, work schedules, and the time difference. Neither of us promised perfection. That mattered. We promised effort instead. One evening I found Maya in my kitchen, tying her hair back while waiting for pasta water to boil. Music played from the speaker. She was wearing the blue sweater that had practically established residency in my apartment. I stood in the doorway longer than necessary. She turned. What? Months earlier I would have invented a reason for looking. Nothing, I said. Then I corrected myself. Actually, that is not true. Maya raised an eyebrow. I am just looking at you. Her expression softened so completely that I almost regretted my honesty. Almost. That is suspiciously romantic for you. Do not spread it around. She crossed the kitchen and kissed my cheek before returning to the stove. I stayed where I was, listening to her hum the wrong melody to a song she had personally introduced me to. I wanted to remember that too. Not because I believed 18 months would erase her, but because love had made me greedy for details. Later that night I noticed something on the counter beside Maya's travel documents. A small metal key on a plain ring. I assumed it belonged to her luggage and thought nothing more of it. I did not know then that before Maya left, that key would end up in my hand. The night before Maya left, neither of us mentioned the suitcase waiting by her door until nearly 10 o'clock. We had dinner at her place because Maya insisted her refrigerator contained several things that would become an ecological experiment, if abandoned for 18 months. I cooked. She opened the wine. Music played low enough that the old version of me would have approved, which felt strangely offensive. Turn it up, I said. Maya stopped with the bottle halfway to her glass. I am sorry? The music. I pointed toward the speaker. It sounds apologetic. She stared at me for a second, then increased the volume. Who are you, and what have you done with Claire Bennett? I have been corrupted by prolonged exposure. I always believed in you. After dinner we left the dishes in the sink. That alone should demonstrate the seriousness of the evening. We sat together on the sofa where, during a snowstorm that now seemed like another lifetime, Maya had once handed me wine and offered shelter when I could not open my own apartment. Her head rested against my shoulder. My fingers were loosely intertwined with hers. There was nothing left to solve. That made the remaining hours both easier and harder. What are you going to miss? Maya asked. Competent packing. She laughed softly. About me. I looked toward the wall separating our apartments. Your keys in the hallway. Maya became still. I always know when it is you. You walk too quickly. Then stop outside your door because you are searching for something you should have found before leaving the elevator. Usually my keys. Usually while holding your phone between your teeth. That happened twice. 4 times. She lifted her head. You counted. Unfortunately, I noticed things. Maya smiled, but her eyes had grown bright. I continued before I lost the courage. I will miss hearing you through the wall. Your music. Your footsteps. The cabinet you closed too hard every morning. You hated all of those things. Yes. It is extremely inconvenient. She leaned closer and kissed me gently. When we separated, her forehead remained against mine. You can play the music when you miss me. That seems like rewarding bad behavior. Play it loud. Now you are being unreasonable. We laughed, and then neither of us did. Later, lying beside her in the dark, we talked about practical things. Calls when schedules allowed. Visits when they made sense. No impossible promises. No pretending 18 months would pass without difficult days. Maya traced her thumb across the back of my hand. Do you ever regret that snowstorm? She asked. The weather. Opening the door. Letting all of this happen. I thought about the question. I did not open the door that night. You did. Technicality. An important one. I turned toward her. No. I regret how long it took me to understand why I wanted it open again. Maya was quiet for several seconds. I love you. The words no longer frightened me. Their weight had changed. I love you too. In the morning, pale light reached across the bedroom floor and touched the packed suitcase by the wall. Maya was still asleep beside me. I listened to her breathing and understood that by evening the apartment would sound completely different. For once, I did not try to prepare myself for the silence. I simply moved closer and held her hand until she woke. Morning refused to become dramatic for us. Maya burned one piece of toast because she was answering a message from her new supervisor, and I made coffee exactly the way she liked it, with enough cream to make me question whether it still qualified as coffee. Her suitcases waited near the door while we moved around them as if ignoring them might delay the clock. It did not. By late morning Maya checked her phone and said, "We should go." 2 words. That was all it took to make the apartment feel temporary. I carried the smaller suitcase into the hallway while Maya locked the larger one. When she stepped outside, she looked back into her apartment for several seconds. Plants watered, I said. Windows closed. Refrigerator emptied. Thermostat adjusted. You really know how to make leaving romantic. I am saving my poetry for the elevator. She smiled but did not move. Then she reached into her coat pocket. Wait. She took out the small metal key I had noticed beside her travel documents days earlier. Before I understood, she placed it in my palm and folded my fingers around it. Maya, keep it. I looked at the key, then at her door. You are going to be gone 18 months. We can arrange for building management to check the apartment. I know. Then why do I need this? Her mouth curved slightly. Because I trust you with my plants. That is reckless. We have discussed my relationship with indoor vegetation. Then try not to kill them. I almost laughed. Almost. Maya's thumb brushed once across my closed hand. Look after the place for me. Something in her voice made every practical objection disappear. I understood what she was giving me without either of us having to make it larger with explanation. Years earlier, losing my own key had left me stranded outside my apartment until Maya opened her door. Now she was leaving, and she was making certain her door would remain open to me. I swallowed. You will need this when you come back. Maya held my eyes. Exactly. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Neither of us moved immediately. Then Maya wrapped her arms around me, and I held her with one hand while the other stayed closed around the key. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. I kissed her gently and without hurry. When we separated, Maya touched my cheek. 18 months, she said. Do not turn it into 30 years in your head. I make no promises regarding mathematical catastrophizing. She smiled. Call me tonight? When you land. Deal. She stepped into the elevator with her suitcases. I did not tell her to stay. She did not pretend leaving was easy. We simply looked at each other until the doors began to close. Claire, Maya said suddenly. What? Play the music. Then the doors met between us. I stood there listening as the elevator descended, the little numbers above it changing one by one. For the first time since Maya had entered my life, the hallway contained no next knock to anticipate. My own door waited on one side. Hers waited on the other. I opened my hand. The key lay against my palm, small and ordinary and impossibly heavy. Then I turned toward Maya's door. I stood in front of Maya's door for several seconds before using the key. The lock turned easily. That surprised me, although I do not know why. I opened the door and stepped into the apartment where, during a snowstorm, Maya had once given me a glass of wine because I had nowhere else to go. Now I had somewhere else to go. I simply did not want to go there yet. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and the candle Maya always forgot to put away. Her sofa sat beneath the window. A folded blanket rested over one arm, and for an instant I remembered waking beneath another blanket years earlier, confused by the warmth and even more confused by the woman who had provided it. I sat down. That was when the silence reached me. Once silence had been the thing I defended most fiercely. I had mistaken control for peace because nothing could disappoint you if you never gave it permission to matter. Maya had ruined that arrangement completely. I looked at the key in my palm. Somewhere far beyond this building, she was traveling toward a life she had earned. I missed her already. I let myself admit it without correcting the thought, minimizing it, or turning it into something more respectable. My eyes filled. I cried quietly for a while, not because Maya had left me, but because she had gone somewhere I could not follow today. There was a difference. I finally understood that. My phone rested beside me. I opened the playlist Maya had made for me long before either of us had been brave enough to name what was happening. The first song began softly. I remembered wine between us. Her hand touching mine. Her voice asking if I was waiting for her. Her face when I finally knocked on her door because I had stopped caring what loving her might require me to call myself. Then I remembered her in my kitchen that morning ruining toast. The memory made me laugh through the last of my tears. The music was too quiet. I increased the volume. Then, after considering it, I increased it again. Bass traveled gently through the floor. I looked toward the wall and imagined some unfortunate neighbor wondering which irresponsible woman had decided the entire building needed her playlist. Your fault, I murmured. The key was still warm from my hand. Maya would call when she landed. There would be difficult mornings, inconvenient time zones, missed dinners, visits that ended too quickly, and 18 months neither of us could completely predict. I could not control any of that. For once I did not need to. The apartment next door was empty tonight, but I was not. Maya had left me a key, a promise without ceremony, and enough music to fill the silence until she came home. I once believed peace meant having no one close enough to disturb it. Maya taught me something better. Sometimes home is a door you can open for someone who intends to return. And if this story stayed with you, thank you for spending this time with us. Please subscribe to the channel and share this story with someone who might need the reminder that love does not always ask us to hold tighter. Sometimes it asks us to trust what remains when we finally let go.